I'm joined by former Kerry captain, All-Ireland win captain, I should add, Darran O'Sullivan, to talk about Kerry. Darran, how's things?
Good, yeah, not too bad. No, I suppose for someone who was against the championship restarting, I'm looking forward to Kerry going out their first outing, and I enjoyed the games the weekend. So look, it's to be fair, for someone that was probably against having it, it's good to have it back.
And the two games that Kerry have played since they've come back, beaten Monaghan 17 points to 14, and then it was a bit of a second string Donegal team, but beat them 2-18 to 10 points to win the league. Were you impressed with what you saw?
Yeah, I suppose we kind of all know what the players can do individually. Like, my biggest worry going into it was not even a worry going into them games, because look, they're the end of the league. They didn't really mean a whole pile, even though there was a league title at the end of it. Was would we see something different? And I think we have. I would have been wary enough of Cork coming in the long grass, I suppose, and the threat they can pose with their direct running. A small bit like Mayo at times, to be honest. Like, they kind of run from everywhere, and once they get up ahead of steam, they're hard to stop. But I think the setup the Kerry have used in the last two league games have put me at ease anyway. They've kind of reassured me. I think they're getting bodies back. I wouldn't call it like it's a funny one. They're not just flooding the defence, they're filtering back. So they're getting back, they're getting protection there for the defenders, and just the pace that they're breaking at, it just suits the players they have. I think an argument with Kerry for the last for a number of years, even when going back while I was involved and further on again, like, it's that we couldn't mark the one-on-one direct style. So I think this game plan that Peter has in place is actually suiting the players that we have now.
Yeah, I saw you tweeting during the game against Donegal about the great transition. Has that changed much?
What's that?
Has the transitional play changed much? I mean, is it something that they weren't doing in 2019 that you think is happening better now?
Maybe so. I think, do you know what? I always looked at the half forward line, probably more so the wing forwards, as the hardest position in football, because they're expected to get back, track back, cover fellas, and then get up and be a threat. But the way Kerry have it at the moment, you have players like Gavin White, Tom Sullivan, Paul Murphy, Jason Foley's got incredible pace. That when the backs or the forwards are working back and they're working so hard, they don't have to get up as quickly, because the backs are as comfortable up there, and they're just bombing on. And look, just the pace and the athleticism, even the game against Donegal, the pass Tom Sullivan did, the composure just to hold the ball for that extra split second, see the pass and actually pull it off for Sean O'Shea's goal. It kind of gives that half forward line an extra couple of seconds to get up at the ease, that if the game does slow down, that then they're coming onto it and they're not actually gassed.
And the players that have been picked in the half forward line then, let's say Micheál Burns and Ronan Buckley in the last couple of games, and even you'd see it with Dublin with maybe Eric Lowndes, and I'm struggling to think off the top of my head who else was played wing forward, but it seems to be very much responsible sort of wing forwards who will work back. And now you've got the scorers that are more playing at wing back, and you can see that across the board. Paddy Durcan, I mean, Jack McCaffrey was the obvious one for Dublin as well. Kerry have very much kind of taken that to the next level with Gavin White and Paul Murphy, haven't they?
Yeah, look, obviously we're from the outside, we're looking in, and what I'm looking at from the 10 and 12 is, yeah, if they chip in with a point or two during the game, that's great, but it's more of it's a big picture, and they have to buy into the big picture. I think that Peter is setting out for them, and your job is to work hard. But like I said in my piece for the Kerry side this year, nobody gets picked, and I'd hate to see a fella get picked on a Kerry team as, oh, he works hard. You have to be able to offer more than that when you're on the ball. So, like, obviously you have to work hard, but when you're on it, you have to be able to make a difference. And I think that's the balance they have at the moment, that they have fellas at the moment that are buying into what they're doing, that they have to be back, they have to be forward, but when they're on the ball, they have to be good enough to make a difference, and they have to be intelligent enough to be able to pick passes and see the right option. But the only positions I actually see a bit of confusion at the moment is doing forward positions. Like, there's an awful lot of competition there. Stephen O'Brien only came on against Donegal, and he was nursing a bit of an injury. For me, he's an automatic. So one of them wing forwards is going to lose out, because he brings something that no one else in the Kerry team brings, with that just all action packed energy, that he can just go through two or three defenders with ease. And I actually have the other wing forward gone as well, because I actually see Darran O'Connor going into wing forward and Jack Barry coming in at midfield.
Yeah, because Yeah, because watching Diarmuid O'Connor, he's been really impressive. Himself and maybe Tony Brosnan are the ones that have really stood out.
Yeah. Well, like, I suppose Tony burst on the scene a couple of years ago, and he had all the football. And I suppose it's probably taken him a couple of years now just to mature that extra bit. Physically, he's got a lot stronger. Like, I live in Killarney, I know a lot of the Crooks heads, and you'd be nosy out and be trying to keep an eye on how things going and who's doing well. And they did say that he's transitioned an awful lot in terms of his physicality and his pace and his work rate, that in training he was always up the front, whether it be long runs or short runs. So that's good to see. Like, and sometimes it takes fellas a bit of time just to mature. Even the difference I saw him last year's championship and this year's championship, I think in the 2 games before we actually played the Crokes, where he was actually injured, luckily for us, he had 2 goal chances, 1-on-1, and he literally just delayed, and then popped it up for someone else to tap in. I think go back even 6 months before the stoppage and play and a year, he would have gone for goal. Now he probably would have scored himself, but I just think showing that maturity, that it doesn't have to be him scoring all the time, was a good sign. And Diarmuid O'Connor was always going to be exciting. It was only a matter of time. He was going to have to develop physically. He's a big lad, but he has to throw in a bit of extra strength. And I think the lockdown suited him. From what I heard from people involved with Kerry, was the development of some of the younger Kerry lads in a matter of weeks and months, when they started really focusing on the strength and conditioning, knowing that they didn't have to be tracking and chasing a fella on the Tuesday or Thursday night was huge. So he's a fella that really used the lockdown to his advantage.
So just going by some of the players that you've picked there, and we'll just assume everyone's fit. If you have Moran and Jack Barry midfield, if you've those wing forwards as Stephen O'Brien, Diarmuid O'Connor, Sean O'Sullivan is definitely going to be centre forward. Clifford obviously starts. Paul Ganey, James O'Donoghue and Tony Brosnan. Assuming all are fit, does Brosnan force his way in?
Before any game, I was there in my own head. I was there going, right, you go through who has to start. Paul Ganey had to start. David Moran had to start. Kind of said, like, you're going to have David and Sean O'Shea on. They're guarantees. But I was there, David has to start, which he will. Paul Ganey would have to start just for that bit of experience and then know-how. The likes of Paul Murphy had to start, just for their seniority and their composure and stuff like that. But the way I have it now, I have obviously in my own head, I'd have Diarmuid O'Connor wing forward as an extra midfielder. I'd have Stephen O'Brien there, and I'd have Sean O'Shea. David Clifford's going to be full. You can't not start Tony Brosnan. So then people are there going, you've changed it on Paul Ganey. But I don't think you can not start Darran O'Sullivan
as well.
So
he has been brilliant, like he has.
We're going to ask him to play 7 forwards. But no, I just don't think Paul has enough football played. And I think this is the 1 year where you can't take a chance on a fella coming back and hitting the ground running. You have to play the fellas who played a lot of football and played well. And as I was saying earlier, I don't think you can pick a fella because he works hard. No, Darran O'Brien works as hard as anyone on the field. And that role, he's coming up from the corner and he's in around the kind of the working zone around the middle third. But he's a footballer. And when he gets on the ball, he'll pick a pass, he can shoot off the left and the right, and he's dangerous. So I can see Peter Keane going with him. He'll come out, he'll leave David and Tony inside. They're as dangerous as you're going to come up against. And if one of them's having an off day, the chances are the other fella isn't going to be having an off day. And I think Tony kicked 6 points, 5 from play last day. He's red hot. The confidence is flying. So you're going to have a lot of big players on the bench. Now, I don't know how fit James and Paul are. Are they back fully trained? I don't know. But my thing is, James wouldn't have played a lot of football. Everyone knows his injury track record. So is he going to be able to come in, play a championship game, 70 minutes, 60 minutes, 40 minutes, and be ready to go a week later? You'd have to say no. And Paul Ganey is the same. He's a lot of football in the bit, but he's very little played this year. I don't know what his injury is, but can you risk just throwing a fella in there because of what he's done for the last 6 or 7 years? I don't think you can.
The only thing with Paul Ganey, like, let's say if you were to meet Dublin in an All-Ireland final, or maybe Mayo in an All-Ireland semi-final, that this is a guy that when things were going to pot in the All-Ireland final last year, more than anyone, he was stepping up. So you nearly want to get minutes into him to make sure he's up to speed.
Well, that's the thing. I think like that's why he was my has to start. And then I was there when he missed the Monaghan game. Yeah, look, if he gets 20 minutes, that's all he needs. You know, get the ball in hand. But I just watching Kerry, the way they were playing, it's very high octane. It's no rest. It's go, go, go. If he does start, I think it'll be in place of Tony, which I think will be very harsh.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to watch that. So this weekend, Cork against Kerry. Have you been impressed? I mean, you probably wouldn't have seen much of Cork recently. Of course, that game against Longford didn't go ahead, and then they battered Louth, but very comprehensive in how they walked through Division 3 this year.
Like, I think this is going back right at the start of the year. I genuinely thought Cork had to go backwards to go forwards. Now, I don't think they wanted to go as backwards as Division 3, but it gave them an opportunity just to throw lads in. They have enough good footballers, younger lads, and at times it was like they were afraid to throw them in there, or I don't know. But their house wasn't in order, and Cian O'Neill has gone in there. And I think the Cork way of playing will suit him. It's not as free-flowing as a Kerry, where at times you just leave the forwards at it. Right, you have a game plan, but you don't really tell the Kerry forwards what to do. A lot of them, they have a way of playing, they know that, but a lot of it, you have to play the game as you see it. Whereas I think the Cork team will suit him. I think he'll bring them on. I think even having the likes of Kieran Sheehan back, I know he's injured this weekend, but having somebody like that around the panel and his abilities really, and his leadership and what he would have brought from Australia, I think is a big plus.
You've had Cian O'Neill with Kerry in the past when you won the All-Ireland in 2014. What does he actually bring to a team, and how quickly can he help turn things around?
It's funny, like I have a good time for Cian, but when I was playing, I wasn't really playing under Cian. He didn't really pick me, so I was kind of a frustrated footballer because a lot of it, like Cian's sports science, that's his day job. Like, you know, that's what he does. He's all into facts and figures and, you know, all the scientific side of things, and it's all GPS, and like he's strength and conditioning. Like, he'll bring all that, the sports science stuff, and you put that on the plate for a fella, it's good. But for me, like, when we played, and I get on well with Cian now, and I get on well with him when he was involved with us, even though what he wanted to do didn't suit me, put it that way. Like, you know, it was literally, you won't last the 70 minutes because you're only running X amount of kilometres. And I was like going, yeah, but I could have got 2 or 3 goals in that 40 minutes or whatever. So I would have disagreed with a lot of it. But I just think his knowledge, I suppose, from being involved with the tip hurlers, with us down in Kerry, he'll bring that bit of professionalism to Cork. I think that, I don't know what their system, what they've been like, but they've just been in a rapid decline. I think he'll have the knowledge, he'll have the stature that they'll have to listen. But I think the way they played, their direct running, it's all about mileage, it's about running at pace, it's about direct lines. I think that'll suit what he'll bring to the table.
And do you think last year's Munster final reinvigorated the rivalry? Because, you know, Kerry have been winning every game going back to the Munster semi-final in 2012, but the fact that Cork cut through Kerry and scored 3 goals, and Kerry won 119 to 310 for finish. Do you think it reinvigorated things a bit?
I think so, yeah. Like that, to be honest, the Munster Championship has just got boring. Like, I know every year, like, Kerry, Cork, but for the last, I don't know how many years, bar maybe the odd scare, it's just been Kerry. And we, like, down in Kerry, you don't want that either. You live for them Kerry Cork games on a hot sunny day in Killarney or going up to Cork or whatever. But yeah, like, Kerry need Cork back, and I think we need Cork to put up a fight this year. Like, Kerry, like, that's why I was wary of Cork this year. No, I'm less wary after seeing the way Kerry have prepared in the league the last 2 games. But their style of play has never suited Kerry. It's always been something that we've struggled with. And they've always had big, physical, fast footballers who've been hard to stop. And with the crowd on their back, which they won't have either, the next day cheering them on, I just think it's going to go against them this year. But I do expect them to be at the top table, competing for not only Division 1, but All-Ireland titles in the next couple of years.
The former Cork goalkeeper Ken O'Halloran said it's like the Celtic Rangers in the GAA, and now with no back door as well. It's like, does it feel like a Celtic Rangers?
it probably would have gone back. Like, I know Ken fairly well. Like, Ken is coming down to Glenbeigh for holiday homes for a long time, and it'd be good crack and see his parents for a good bit or whatever. But it would have been like they were just massive games. Like, people always ask me your favourite games that you can't beat All Ireland, but the Munster finals in Killarney, like, it was just red on one side, green on the other. You let you know where the fans are going to be. It was like the home and away into the stadium in Fitzroy Stadium, but that's gone. Like, it has. It's such a damp squib at the moment. Like, it's been a walkover. So I think when things are competitive, that's exactly what it's like. You know, you go back to, like, I always the likes of Pearson Neal, you'd see him bombing through, or Miskela, Kenty, these fellas, like, they were warriors. Like, you know, they were hardy boys. They'd look through you, and we'd look through them. You know, there was just that. It was the same when we had the rivalry with Tyrone. There was no pally after or anything. It was just go out. There was no tweeting each other after or nothing. It was just very much a rivalry.
And are you more excited for this game because there is no backdoor?
Yeah, like, to be honest, a couple of weeks ago I was gearing up for it, and I was kind of going, how am I going to manage to get in there? But I'm not that I'm less excited about it. I'm less worried.
Yeah.
I do think Cork are coming, but just from what I've seen from Kerry, unless they have a meltdown, I can't see them. They look tuned in. They look ready. Even watching the games the weekend, the pace wasn't championship because of the conditions. Now, it could be like that again this weekend, but from what I saw, Kerry, they looked probably as ready, more ready than most of the teams I've seen in terms of pace and the power than anyone else. Now, it's hard to judge the games weekend because they're just dogfights in the conditions, but Kerry looked physically ready for championship.
And do you think Dublin are where they were a year ago? I mean, the downside of it, or, you know, if you want to sort of try and pick holes, you can say it's a new manager, so they don't have the best manager of the recent era anyway. They've probably drawn more league games and haven't been as impressive in the league. Jack McCaffrey isn't there. A couple of the older brigade have retired, so you wonder, does that affect, you know, in-house training matches? And their recent form since coming back, they beat Meath by 4, 120-19, and Galway 215-15. So where do you think Dublin are
at? Over the last couple of years, I genuinely felt that Dublin, they weren't getting better. They're not going to get better when Bernard Brogan was getting less game time, Paul Flynn was leaving, Jim McConnelly was in. Like, their players who really made them great were, saying on the decline is probably the wrong word, but their influence on the game was waning a bit. So they were never going to get better. I just always felt that no team was getting better quick enough to come and join them. And I do think it's a case of, not that they're on a downward slope, that's an insult to a great team, but I do think everyone else is getting closer to them. They're not as ruthless as they were. Like you said, the older players that have gone, the way they would have probably driven things, I think, is gone away from, obviously, Jim Gavin not being there. I've genuinely felt in the few league games before lockdown, and the bit I saw them since the lockdown, is they're sloppy, a bit sloppier. You know, they take more chances. They're not as regimental on their game plan. Like, under Jim Gavin, they didn't lose a ball. Like,
oh, they were turned over so many times against Meath. I couldn't believe it. And I know it was Parnell Park, and that's different to Croker, and they'll probably batter Westmeath, but it just seemed very unusual.
Yeah, like, it was like there's going to be a betting in period for Desi Farno. I know he knows a lot of the lads, but it doesn't matter. It's different. Like, senior football, it's like a different sport to under 20s or under 21s or minors or whatever, or even club. It's a different sport. You could have the greatest club player or under 20 player in the country. He just doesn't cut the mustard at senior level. It's just different. I've noticed it. Like, if you're going back to early league and you're like, first couple of games of the league, they're never going to be bouncing off the ground. But there was fellas going for the outside the boot crossfield pass that wouldn't have done last year, or 2 years ago, or 3 years, definitely not 2 or 3 years ago. Like, and you just can't, like, I suppose when you're at the top for so long, you can't stay straight all the time. But you kind of have to go off course a small bit. So maybe they're just trying to be a bit more unpredictable. But from what I've seen, is they're not as careful on the ball. They're not as clinical. They're not as ruthless. Now they still have the likes of Dean Rock, Kieran Kilkenny, Conor Callan up front, Fenton obviously. So they're not going away. They're going to get in the final.
Yeah, you imagine so.
But defensively, their mainstays, Darran O'Sullivan, kind of held the place together for a long time. He's not getting much action. James McCarthy's sometimes having to go to midfield to fill a gap. Johnny Cooper, I don't think he'd be able to handle a David Clifford.
He's had injuries as well. He got injured against
Wales
as well.
And Philip McMahon's on the road a long time. It's hard to be the main men in the back. It's different as a forward. You can kind of change your game a small bit and get away with less running or whatever. As a back, you've no choice. You have to chase a fella. And I think as you get a bit older, it's a bit tougher in the backs. And I suppose when you've got as many All-Irelands as they have, maybe it's hard to keep that motivation going.
Yeah, and like you've been in dressing rooms where you get a new manager in, and as much as Desi Farrell be like, I won't change too much, I'll just keep the show on the road or whatever, and the players might feel that way. I mean, when you don't have someone micromanaging and making sure that the same message is coming all the time, I'm not saying Desi Farrell is doing anything wrong, but the same messages mightn't be going out there. Lads are picked in slightly different positions, game plan's slightly different, so things might begin to slip even if everyone has the best intentions of keeping them the same.
Yeah, I think because things were so good for so long, and they had the same message and the same manager saying it for so long, and it brought them so much success. You can just imagine you're getting the slightest tweak to what you're being told, and you're like going, well, Jim wouldn't ask me to do that, or Jim wouldn't put me there. And that's human nature. That's going to pop in. So, like, it's one of them ones that you'd say getting the Dublin job with all the players they have and the success they have and the talent they have coming through, what a job to get. But it's a poison chalice, because unless you hammer everyone and win the All-Ireland, it's a failure.
Yeah.
So it's not the easiest job to come into, and like that, trying to get everyone motivated again, get them going with everything else that's going on. I suppose obviously it's great having GA back, but I suppose people's priorities have changed this year. Things that are important to them, obviously football and GA is important to everyone, but there's been a lot more important things going on. So trying to get fellas refocused now, and look, this is the most important thing in the world, even though all they're hearing about is other things. It's going to be tough.
And then the final thing, do you think the winner will come from Donegal, Kerry, Mayo, Dublin?
Yeah, I think so. Like I really like Donegal. What they've been building the last 2 years. Thought they were very unlucky last year. I think any year they can bring Michael Murphy out of the forwards and still call or be big threats up there, that's a great sign for him. Like, you look at, like, I saw Thompson down in Tralee there 2 weeks ago. Just like it's kind of going back to the point you're saying about Kerry. Like, you can't pick a fella just because he works hard. No, he works hard, but what a kicker!
Yeah,
brilliant kicker. And then you have a young lad there like Gallen coming on, who was excellent. He kicked 2 great points last year against Kerry. Kicked a beautiful point again the weekend. McBurty didn't even play. So they have a lot of threats up there, which I think takes the pressure off Michael Murphy, which is great, because I think you take a bit of the pressure off him, he's just going to flourish, because he doesn't have to try and do everything.
Absolutely. As always, Darren, brilliant stuff. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Shane.